Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm Jason White and this is Jason's Weird Reads. And this, as the title suggests with the reads, is where I like to talk about books. I mostly talk about horror books, fantasy books, and science fiction books. If you think that sounds cool and you're new, hit the subscribe button and we'll discuss some books. Alright, so finally here. Finally here to do my top 10 books of 2020. It's taken me a little bit of time to get here because, well, I'm going to explain that in one of my From the Hip videos coming up shortly. But so I'm just going to get on here and I'm going to get right into it. You should always be prepared when you do these things and have your list ready. All right, so I'm going to start off with some honorable mentions, and I have quite the list here for honorable mentions, which is, I got like 5 books here, so you could call this like the top 15 of 2020, but there's reasons why some of these are where they are in the honorable mentions, and the first one is Plank Children by Michael Schutz. Michael Schutz is a very good friend of mine. In fact, I would go so far as to say he's one of my best friends. And he has been for a long time, since around 2014, 2015, when I first started talking to him. And then we started, well, I started the Darkness Dwells podcast, where we talked to authors and we discussed movies. And I invited him to co-host the show with me. And we did that for about 3 years, and it's not completely gone, but it might come back. But anyways, Plank Children by Michael Schutz. I didn't want to add this to the list because it would definitely be viewed as my being biased. But despite Michael being my friend, or any friend for that matter, I can still tell, I think anyway, whether or not it's a good book or not. And Plank Children is a lot of fun. If you like asylum type stories, horror stories, haunted asylum type things, you're going to enjoy this book. Seriously, pick it up. It's very dark and it's very twisted, and I don't think it's getting enough attention. So check out Michael Schutz's Plank Children. Next up, I have Born. This is one I did last year in 2019. I did my best of list before the year turned over to 2020. And that was a mistake, because I hadn't yet read Born by Jeff Vandermeer, and that would have made the top 10 list. I put it as an honorable mention here because it kind of floats between. It's really difficult for me to say why I didn't add it to this list. I think it's because in my mind it belongs in the 2019 list. But it's a fascinating book. It's like, it's out there, and I absolutely loved it. And I read it for my guest spot on Books in the Freezer that Stephanie invited me on to discuss weird fiction. So that was a lot of fun. And thanks again, Stephanie. That was a blast. And I was wrong. There's not 5 books. There's 4 books. Also, Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. The reason why this isn't on my top 10 list is because I don't know if we were supposed to root for the characters, is what I'm saying. There's not very many likable, if any, likable characters in this book. And yet it has the feel that you're supposed to be rooting for them. And if you read this book, you know what I'm talking about. There's a part where there's a reveal, and then you're just like, am I supposed to be, is this okay? So I need to reread it because maybe then it'll click for me. And A Foster Homes and Flies by Chad Lutzke. The reason why this is on the honorable mention is because I went ahead and I listened to the audiobook, and it confused me a little bit because the point of view characters in the book is a 12-year-old child, but the narrator sounds like he's in his 60s. And there is no, this is what happened to me, 50 years ago type thing. It's just the guy telling a story, the 12-year-old telling a story. And so, when I can differentiate the two, but my brain still is like, it's a very good story. I suggest reading it, though, and not listening to the audiobook, which is kind of a rare recommendation from me. It is a very good book and it does belong on this list, but I thought that the choice of narrator was kind of strange. Alright, so this is my top 10 list of 2020 reads, and they are ranked, so stay tuned to the end to see what my number 1 pick is. Alright, at number 10, I have Our Doris by Charles Heathcote. This came as a very pleasant surprise to me. Springtime, I believe, last year, when the coronavirus was just starting to, take over the world, and I needed something comforting to read, and Our Doris really hit the mark. It's funny. It's so funny. There is some comedy in there that's very British focused, and if you're not from Britain, you might not get it, but it didn't bother me at all. I think pretty much anyone who likes contemporary, lighthearted contemporary stories would really dig this book. At number 9 is The Good House by Tananarive Due. I listened to this on audiobook, and the reason why this is so far back is because for some reason, and I don't know why, I kind of lost interest by the end. The ending didn't grab me like it did some people. But The Good House by Tananarive Due is a beautifully well-written book. The characters in this book are so incredibly realistic. It's insane how realistic they are, especially the teenage boy. I'm too far removed from the book, so I can't remember his name, but the teenage boy, the son, he's very realistic, scarily realistic, in fact. It made me think when my kid gets to be, around the age of 16, is he going to be thinking like this? Because a lot of kids think like this. But yeah, I highly recommend The Good House by Tananarive Due. I think that my reaction to the ending was probably an unpopular opinion. I don't know why it didn't gel with me. It could have been just that I needed or wanted to move on by that point. I don't know. In at number 8, I have Memory of Light by by Robert Jordan and Brandon Sanderson. During 2019, it was like March of 2019 to March of 2020, I read all of the Wheel of Time books, and I loved it. Of course, I did have my issues with the series. I think everyone, even the diehard fans, have their issues with this series. It's very sprawling. It's huge. The world in this is huge. I kind of regret not making more video content for the Wheel of Time, but I was thinking maybe of doing a reread at some point and then making some Wheel of Time centered videos because, it's popular. People love the series, and I love the series too, and I kind of want to dive into that a bit more, but I don't know, maybe in the future, maybe not, I don't know. But yeah, the whole series, I'm putting the whole series here in at number 8 because it was quite the accomplishment, honestly, and it was a lot of fun. The last book, though, is really good. There's so much war in it and so much death. It's mind-boggling. All right, in at number 7, I have another series that I want to actually add the whole series in, that at least as it stands right now, and that's Blood Standard by Laird Barron. This is a private detective novel about an ex-mob guy. The mob kind of turns on him because he made a mistake, and they're gonna go kill him, but the mob boss phones and saves him at the last minute. He says, "No, we're not killing this guy." But that's the very opening scene of Blood Standard, and it's kind of funny because our protagonist here, for some reason his name is escaping me, but that always happens. Actually, I got the books right here. All 3 books. This is Blood Standard here. I bought this pretty much when it first came out, and it took me a few years to read it. It's Blood Mountain, Black Mountain, sorry, and Worse Angels. The character in question is Coleridge, and he in the first book, the very opening chapter, he he's going to be killed. These goons are going to kill him, but like I said, he gets the reprieve at the very last moment. And this series, Laird Barron, if you don't know, he writes. He's known a lot for his weird fiction, and he doesn't hold back on the weird fiction too much on these. As the books progress, they get a little bit more weirder and weirder, and it's very good. I mean, it's very dark too. These books go into some very dark places, and I highly recommend them. In at number 6, I have Indian Horse by Richard Wegamis. Now, this book is a very depressing look into what we Canadians did to the Native people during the 60s, I believe, 50s, 60s, 70s, and that was taking children away from their parents and putting them into boarding schools. And very, these kids were abused very badly by each other, by the teachers, by the just by the system. I mean, just being ripped away from your parents like that is just ridiculous. They had no choice. They had to go to these boarding schools. There was a lot of suicides and a lot of sexual abuse. This book does not shy away from any of it. It's horrific. This book could be considered a horror story, but the main character in this, he falls in love with hockey, and he gets to be such a good hockey player that the Toronto Maple Leafs are interested in him, and they want to draft him, but other things get in the way of the main character's ambition for this, like drugs and alcohol. And so he goes up, and he's about to get very successful, and then he falls into a very self-destructive way of life, and you get to learn why very at the end. And I'm not going to spoil that, obviously, but there's something that happened to him in his childhood while he was at the boarding school that pretty much caught up to him and made him self-destruct. And it's a very sad story. I'm pretty sure that most of Richard Wegamis's books are going to be sad. All right, in at number 5, I have Kill Creek by Scott Thomas. I read this with Kasha from Kasha's Book Cemetery, and we had a lot of fun reading this. I've talked a lot about this book. In fact, I've probably talked a lot about all these books, but I think I've talked about this book the most. But it's a lot of fun. If you like haunted house stories, this book takes all the tropes, and it doesn't really spin them on their heads, but it breathes into it new life that I think was needed. I was in a haunted house reading slump for the longest time. I used to love haunted house stories, but I got very bored of, baby toys starting up and moving on their own and stuff like that. It just got old. But this book breathes very welcome new life into the whole haunted house genre. In at number 4, I have Headhunter by Tim Curran. This book took me by surprise because I wasn't sure if it was going to be good. Tim Curran, he's a favorite author of mine, but he can be hit or miss. You can tell, honestly, when he's feeling the story versus when he's not. This story, he was feeling. I think he had a blast writing this book. If he didn't, then I'm wrong. I don't know why some of his books work for me or why some of them don't. But this one did, and it's a blast to read through. It's gory, it's scary. It's got some memorable war scenes in it. I remember thinking that it was very reminiscent of reading about a war reporter during the Vietnam War going from camp to camp and even going into battle. It was very well done, and it felt like it was very well researched. In at number 3, I have Moon of the Crested Snow by Wabgeshig Rice. And this book is a post-apocalyptic novel about natives, Canadian indigenous natives living on a residence far up north in Ontario. And their power goes out, and it stays out. I mean, living on the residence, the power going out isn't a big deal, but the fact that it's staying out for days, and then weeks, and then months, obviously that's going to raise some alarms. And they don't know what's going on down south. But some people from south are coming up and saying that all the power's out. It's a fascinating look into colonialism, honestly. It's very blunt in the themes with that, and I absolutely enjoyed it. I think everyone should read it as an exercise for looking into colonialism and its horrors and why Native people call colonialism an apocalypse to their own people. It's very, very important. I think this book is very important. I think people should read it everywhere. And I think also that this book is going to be a series, but I'm not too sure about that. In at number 2, we're getting there, I have The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. There's a lot of indigenous people on this list, and so I've made it a priority to read more indigenous fiction in 2021 for obvious reasons, because they write really, really well. And this book is no exception. The Only Good Indians it's about 4 main characters, and you follow them all separately. And so their stories all connect with this one crime that they committed against, it's a hunting crime that they committed. And it comes back to haunt them in a very horrific slasher-like way. And it is absolutely fun. I enjoyed the first half of the book more than the second half, but that's very typical with me. But I really enjoyed the one character in book 2. The very first part is a very fun short story. I think it could definitely work as a short story. It doesn't need to be in there, but it adds so much that it's there, and I absolutely loved both those two. And then the rest, they're good too, but oh my god, the second story is like it deserves second place for that alone. And in at number one, you might be surprised. I've talked about this book a couple of times, but I don't think I've talked about it extensively. And that is Armageddon House by Michael Griffin. This book is definitely a piece of weird fiction. It you don't know what's going on in this book. All you know is that there's 4 characters, and they're trapped underground. Well, they're not trapped. Well, they're kind of trapped. They're there, and you're thinking maybe it's a science experiment of some sort. They're there for a reason, and they have their daily routine that they go through. They have supplies. That's I believe those supplies are replenished every so often. How, we don't know. And there's medicine that they have to take. Why, we don't exactly know why. But each of the characters they have very strong characteristics. We have like a passive-aggressive type guy. We have a bully. We have somebody who's losing it. They're going insane. They're very mentally ill. And honestly, I can't remember what the 4th personality is like. But so you have these personalities sort of clashing and trying for control. And they're also trying to figure out what's going on as well. And when we don't really, I mean, it's weird fiction, so we don't ever really learn exactly what's going on. But we get a glimpse, and it's a very strange, hallucinogenic trip that I can only explain by telling you to go read the damn book. It's very short, it's a lot of fun, and it makes you think throughout the whole thing. And that is my top book for 2020. We did it. 2021 is here, and it has started with a bit of a bang, and that is not a pun. So I'm hoping that this year will be a little bit better than last year. Last year was a really great reading year, and I'm looking forward to continuing that this year with a lot of fantasy, actually, I guess. Alright, so that is my top 10 list. Thank you for watching. Please take care of yourselves, be safe, and keep being kind and keep being creative. I'll catch you guys in the next bookish video.